The new number 11 Kolsch is available at Walter's Sports Bar starting today. This new beer is a collaboration between employee number 11 and Lost Barrel Brewing.
School is back, and Dick's Sporting Goods has what you need to win your year. We've got everything from cleats to Sambas, dunks, and more. Plus, the hottest looks from Nike, Jordan, and Adidas. Find your first day fits in-store or online at dicks.com.
The 0-2. Swing a long drive right field for Garcia. Frelick going back to the warning track, looking up, and there it goes. Garcia puts one over the big wall in right field, his 12th of the season. And the Nationals tack on another. They lead 5-0 here in the third.
Swinging a line drive center field. That's a base hit. Garcia held but being waved around third, coming to the plate. The throw on threw out in front of the plate by Contreras, the catcher, firing to second, and safe there is James Wood. Has himself a single to center, scoring Garcia. Driving in his 17th run of the year into second on the throw to the plate. And it's now the Nationals 6 and the Brewers 1. Finnegan sets. His pitch swung on, bouncer right side, slowly hit. Yepes has it to the bag himself, and a curly W's in the books. And the Nationals even the series with the Brewers and a game apiece.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Sunday, August 4th. 2024, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. The Nats' 5-game losing streak is over. Saturday, a 6-4 win over the National League Central leading Milwaukee Brewers at Nationals Park. This was the Nats' first win since the previous Saturday. This game, in fact, marked the Nats winning on a 6th consecutive Saturday. The Nats lately have been doing quite well in their Saturday games. The Nats for this regular season now are 50-61. The Nats in this game scored 4 runs in the bottom of the first, despite each of the Nats' first 2 batters in that inning being retired. That was an impressive 2-out rally by the Nats in that bottom of the first. This was a game in which second baseman Luis Garcia Jr. continued his surge. This was a game in which DJ Herz put forth a 3rd consecutive impressive start. This also was a game in which the Nats bullpen did have some problems. But Mark, the Nats got the win, and they got the win in a game in which we did not have a rain delay. This game incredibly happened without a rain delay, despite rain being all over the Washington, D.C. area on Saturday, and despite the immediate skies above Nationals Park opening up pretty much right after the game.
You could see it coming, Al. Everybody could see it coming. And when it was 6-1, you thought, all right, they should be all right with this, not a real issue. And then all of a sudden it's 6-4, and Kyle Finnegan has to come in to the game. And I asked him in the clubhouse afterwards if he was paying attention to the clouds. And he said he felt the wind change directions for sure. And he said, I better get this thing done. And it's a good thing he did, because they were only a few minutes away from the skies opening on them. And that would have been really a nightmare scenario for everybody involved. So good job, Kyle Finnegan. Maybe his best save of the season, all things considered.
Yes, a true save in multiple ways, to be sure. So, we know how it is with the Nats offense. When it's bad, it's quite bad. But when it's good, it actually can be pretty good. And the Nats can have these big innings. The Nats can score early in games. And sure enough, they did that in this 6-4 win over the Brewers on Saturday. A terrific 4-run bottom of the first. Like I said, the entirety of the offensive production in that inning happening with 2 outs. And there just was so much to like about what the Nats did in that 4-run bottom of the first inning. You get a Luis Garcia Jr. double. You get a Keibert Ruiz RBI single. You get a James Wood walk. You get a Travis Blankenhorn 2-run double on what was his 28th birthday, by the way. You get an Alex Call RBI single and also a stolen base by Call. And while the game did get a bit close, certainly in the latter innings, to see the Nats do that, to see them erupt like that, I know they didn't do a ton the rest of the game, but this is what we're asking for. Can you just give us this a little more often? That 4-run first was tremendous by this team.
Yeah, and all of it with 2 outs. That was so key. And Call explained it that it's such a deflator for the opposing team. You think you're about to have a nice quick 1-2-3 bottom of the first, and then the next thing you know, Garcia doubles down the line. It's like, oh, well, all right, it's not over yet. Then it's an RBI single. Okay, now we've given up a run. Then it's a walk. Well, now this thing's continuing. Then it's a 2-run double. Then it's another RBI single. And by the time the inning's over, Savali has thrown 34 pitches. It's 4-0. And it's such a boost on the National side. DJ Herz said he felt it the boost of that now taking the mound with a 4-run lead. And it's a deflating thing for the other side. So we've talked all year about how they have not been good in the first inning. They've had a handful of these really big first innings, but not consistently at all. So it was great to see that happen, especially with 2 outs, and especially from some guys who were in a more prominent spot in the lineup. And that's Garcia batting third and Ruiz batting fourth. And I'm sure people saw that lineup come out and thought, I don't know about that. Right now, Luis Garcia is one of their absolutely best hitters and deserves to be in a prominent spot in the lineup. And I was glad to see him get that opportunity, and even more glad to see him take advantage of that.
He has picked up right where he left off in the month of July. I mean, he ended up having a superb July, and his August is off to such a good start. Luis Garcia Jr. in this game on Saturday, another big game as the Nats starting second baseman. And like Mark just said, this time the number 3 batter, 3 for 4, solo homer, double, and a single. And he had a stolen base. Garcia in that Nats 4-run first, a 2-out double into right field. Garcia in the Nats 1-run third, leadoff homer to right field on an 0-2 pitch for a 5-0 Nats lead. The homer going a projected 400 feet per Statcast. And Garcia in the Nats 1-run fifth, a leadoff single up the middle. And he had a steal of second base. You know, I was thinking about this with Luis Garcia Jr. He clearly now is having a step forward season. And we this season have had so few of the, shall we say, Luis Garcia Jr. shenanigans that we had become accustomed to in recent years. Like, he has been a pro. He has not had like the defensive lapses, certainly not with the frequency that we had grown accustomed to in previous seasons. And lately, the guy has taken off offensively. Spring training, we know that he was under attack a bit with Trey Lipscomb on the rise. I wonder how much of that maybe got him to sort of get on track and to sort of stop with the shenanigans, you know, for lack of a better word. And, you know, you have the Lipscomb thing. You also have the Nats drafting Seaver King. We haven't really talked about Seaver King, you and me, on this podcast. I know he's a shortstop out of Wake Forest, but conceivably he could play second base. Obviously, the Nats have C.J. Abrams at shortstop. So I do wonder if maybe Garcia was like, okay, I got to wise up here. I got to, you know, firm up here. Lipscomb, Seaver King. And man, he has taken a hold of this second base job, and he really seems to be making it his own right now.
Yeah, he had a couple of messages sent to him over time. In fact, one of them was exactly 1 year ago on Saturday when he was sent to the minor leagues, remember, to AAA. And the message then was, it's time for you to get it together. We want you to be better at conditioning. We want you to be better at defense. We want you to be better at your focus every single pitch of the game. Now, he came back and he was okay after that. And then he came to spring training, and it was a sloppy spring training for him. And as you pointed out, Davey Martinez kept saying he was critical of him. And we all, kind of reading between the lines, thought to ourselves, man, it may only be a matter of time before Trey Lipscomb is this team's starting second baseman. Well, think about how that's gone now since. Lipscomb's obviously their starting third baseman, but has not performed offensively to an extent that makes you think he's the long-term answer there, at least not yet. And what has Garcia done instead? He has been legitimately one of their most productive hitters this year. And look at these numbers compared to C.J. Abrams now. C.J. Abrams, an all-star, best player on the team, right? Okay, Garcia's got him way better in batting average, 287 to 253. But Abrams' on-base percentage is only 4 points higher, 325 to 321. Slugging percentage only 4 points higher, 455 to 451. Out-homering him 16 to 12, RBI 54 to 52. And here's the one that's been sneaky. I didn't even realize myself. C.J. Abrams got 20 stolen bases, but it's been caught 10 times. Luis Garcia now has 17 stolen bases, and he's only been caught 3 times. So you talk about all those little things and cleaning that up and showing the focus. And he talked about it with us afterwards that at times he was worried too much about the big picture. And what he's been able to do now is focus on all the little things and understand that that will ultimately lead to better things in the big picture. All credit in the world to him. He has put the work in and shown so much improvement in every part of the game. And I don't know if you can say yet that he's definitively their long-term answer at second base, but he has done just about everything he could to this point to make that case for himself.
He's making his case for sure. And, you know, one of the things I remember about him being demoted to the minors last season was Mike Rizzo at one point coming out and saying we wanted Luis Garcia to get in better shape. They basically said this guy was out of shape. I mean, they publicly called him out. They made it clear he needed to shape up, literally and figuratively. And sure enough, he has. Luis Garcia Jr. for this regular season, as of games through July 2nd, had an OPS of 675. His OPS now is up to 772. He, in slightly more than a month, has raised his OPS by nearly 100 points. And you just did the compare and contrast Abrams versus Garcia. Abrams, for so much of this season, has been number one among all qualified Nats players in OPS. His OPS for this regular season now at 780. Garcia's now is at 772. He is right on the heels of C.J. Abrams in terms of that top OPS spot on the Nats. Cannot say enough good things about Luis Garcia Jr.
Here's the set and the pitch on the way. Swinging a ground ball toward the middle. On through a base hit center field. Blankenhorn getting the green light on his way to the plate. A pump fake and no throw from the Brewers center fielder Blake Perkins. He'll lob it into second base. It's a single up the middle. A run batted in for Alex Cole, his fifth of the year. And it's now the Nationals 4, the Brewers nothing here with 2 out of the bottom of the first inning. This all started with 2 out and nobody on.
The Nats in this game totaled 10 hits. 6 of the 10 hits came from 2 guys. Luis Garcia Jr. had 3. Alex Cole had a 3-hit game. I tell you, I mentioned this a few shows ago. Alex Cole has this thing where when he gets called up, at least in the immediacy of him getting called up, he's productive. And he's doing that again. Cole in this game on Saturday as the Nats starting right fielder, number 7 batter, 3 for 3 with an RBI single and 2 leadoff singles. He in that 4-run first had a 2-out RBI single up the middle for a 4-0 Nats lead. And he had to steal a second base. Also bottom of the 4th, leadoff single into left, bottom of the 6th, leadoff single into center. But his RBI single and that 4-run first, it was a 2-out rally that was not ending. And the Nats kept adding on. That was what was so impressive about it. And Cole putting the exclamation mark with that RBI single and then stealing second base.
We've seen it before from him, and I have no illusions here this is going to continue. But you want to talk about big numbers. Okay, in his 12 big league games that he's played this year, both in the earlier stint and now this one over the last week, he's batting .429 with a .568 on base percentage and .607 slugging. He has been remarkable and taking full advantage of this opportunity that he's been given. Now, does that mean anybody believes that he is the long-term answer in right field? No, I'm pretty sure nobody's about to say that except maybe Alex Cole himself. Dylan Cruz eventually is going to have that job. But boy, at a time when you thought to yourself, how are they going to cope with the loss of Lane Thomas and Jesse Winker? Alex Cole is doing everything he can to help make up for that. It's come at the absolute right time. He's confident. He was hitting well in Rochester before he was called up, so this is kind of a continuation of that. You hope he can continue it for as long as possible and not fall back into those slumps that we've seen him in the past. He's always seemed like a guy that the more he plays, the more he then gets exposed and the numbers fall off a cliff. But for now, it's been much appreciated and has really made a difference for this team.
I mentioned that 2-run double by Travis Blankenhorn. He on Saturday was the Nats starting designated hitter and number 6 batter. And he on what was his 28th birthday, 1 for 4 with that 2-run double. Blankenhorn in the Nats 4-run first, a 2-out opposite field 2-run double off the left field wall on an 0-2 pitch for a 3-0 Nats lead. Keibert Ruiz got in on the act. He is the Nats starting catcher and cleanup batter, 1 for 4, had an RBI single in that 4-run first, a 2-out RBI single to right field on a 1-2 pitch for a 1-0 Nats lead. And James Wood, he in this game as the Nats starting left fielder and number 5 batter, 1 for 3 with an RBI single and a walk. He did get thrown out in an attempted steal at third base for a second out in an inning, but Wood in the Nats 1-run 5th, 1-out RBI single into center field for a 6-1 Nats lead. That was the inning in which he got thrown out on the attempted steal, but the RBI single, another StatCast gem, that ribby single per StatCast, exit velocity of 109 miles per hour, which was the Nats' highest exit velocity of the game. It's funny, C.J. Abrams and Juan Yepes, the Nats' numbers 1 and 2 batters, went a combined 0 for 8 in this game. And yet the Nats scored 6 runs, totaled 10 hits, went 4 for 7 with runners in scoring position. Only drew 1 walk, but all things considered, a good offensive game for the Nats.
Yeah, it was their 3 through 7 hitters that did it because their 8-9 hitters, Young and Lipscomb, didn't really do a whole lot either. So credit to the middle of the order. And as I said, these are not necessarily the names that you think a lot about in terms of middle of the order. Garcia, Ruiz, Wood, obviously, yes, but then Blankenhorn and Call, and they kept it going after that first inning, knocked Savali out of the game. And then they did get kind of swing happy there late. some really quick outs. And maybe they knew the weather was coming, but they made some very quick outs late in the game as they were holding on to that lead. And thankfully, it didn't cost them. But I guess we can't be too greedy with this lineup right now. Right?
No, not at all. And good job by the Nats. And a chance to win yet another series against the Brewers. 1 2 out of 3 at Milwaukee going into the All-Star break. And now on Sunday, we'll have an opportunity to win this series at Nationals Park. Well, the Nats starting pitcher for the 6-4 win over the Brewers on Saturday was DJ Herz. And DJ Herz was good for a third consecutive start. He allowed 1 run, which was unearned in 5 innings, had 6 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He gave up just 2 hits, which were a double and a single. He did issue a hit by pitch and a wild pitch. He threw 77 pitches, so this was another outing in which the Nats very carefully monitored his workload. 77 pitches, 49 strikes versus 28 balls. But here, to me, is the takeaway with DJ Herz. So he, in his initial run at the major league level this season, had the 2 great starts, and then the other starts really weren't that good. He gets optioned back to AAA Rochester for a break/reset. He was at AAA officially July 8th to July 23rd. He's since being brought back up to the majors. 3 starts, just 4 earned runs in 15 innings, 18 strikeouts versus just 4 walks. He was not consistent prior to being demoted back to Rochester in July. He's since being brought back up from Rochester, has demonstrated a nice consistency.
This is what they need from him now. This is how you're going to find out whether he really is a part of this moving forward or not. We've already seen that when he's good, he's really good and able to get some very good big league hitters out. Now, the catch is, can you do that on a regular basis? And in that first stint, it was, well, no. You don't really know what you're going to get on any given day that he takes the mound. So this has been very encouraging. 3 starts that have been really very similar in all of them. This was probably the best of the 3. He's gone 5 innings in each of them, pulled with a pitch count in the high 70s, kept it to 2 runs or less, kept the walks down, which of course for him are important. And what you see is a guy who, when he commands his fastball, it's really good and he's really effective. And he has the changeup, he can play off it. They want him to develop more confidence in the slider so that it has that third pitch. And he's going to have to learn one of these days how to be effective when he doesn't have his fastball command. It's a tough thing to do, but ultimately you need to have that ability. But what we're seeing right now says that when he locates that pitch, and it is his bread and butter pitch, and it's a really good fastball, he can get anybody out in this league and have success.
And DJ Herz now for this regular season, 46 1/3 innings, 59 strikeouts. His strikeouts per 9 innings is up to 11.46. We've had the conversation about Herz versus Jake Irvin versus Mitchell Parker. Who has the most upside? Clearly, Irvin is having the best season. But DJ Herz, if he in fact is this kind of a strikeout pitcher, maybe there's more upside with him than people realize. If he can maintain something like 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, even that gets that down to 10, that's pretty special if he can do that kind of a thing. And I know for me, that is what has impressed me as much as anything with this guy. This guy generates strikeouts, and you can do a lot of good things with that.
If he can do that and limit the walks, that's going to be the key. There have been plenty of high strikeout pitchers who just, also walk 4 or 5 batters per 9, and that's not going to work in the long run. But I mean, the strikeout to walk ratio for him, 59-13, only 13 walks in 46 1/3 innings. And we know there've been a couple of games in there where it actually has gone up and been pretty high. So that is a good sign if he can do that. That really was the only question about him coming into all this. We had high walk numbers in the minors, but they saw something in him, and credit to the Nats scouting department here, their professional scouting department, for identifying him as a guy they targeted at the trade deadline last year. And they got him because he was not considered an elite prospect. What was he, the Cubs' 17th or 16th best prospect at the time of the trade for Jeimer Candelario? You don't get him if he's the number 3-4 prospect in their system. But they saw something there and worked with him, saw more in the Arizona Fall League, saw him this spring and said, this is somebody who can make a difference for us. And so all the credit to their scouts for identifying him and their player development people for helping him turn into what he is doing right now. And now it's up to him and the big league staff to keep him there and find that level of consistency that we're hoping to see from him that could make him a true key part of this rotation for many years to come.
Yeah, July 31st, 2023 was when the Nats traded Jeimer Candelario to the Chicago Cubs for DJ Herz and shortstop Kevin Made. And Herz was, in fact, the Cubs' number 16 overall prospect per MLB Pipeline at the time. I mean, DJ Herz was an 8th round pick. The Cubs took Herz out of a high school in North Carolina in the 8th round of the 2019 MLB draft. And yeah, when we talk about Herz and Parker and Irvin, 3 guys who weren't just first round picks, but they were like pretty far removed from first round picks. And the Nats getting what they're getting out of all 3 of those guys this season does say a lot of good things about their front office and their player development. And that is so encouraging for so many reasons, not just with those 3 guys, but what that could mean for the Nats moving forward.
Here's your AAA Rochester report for the game played on Saturday evening. Dylan Cruz 1 for 4 with a single, hitting right behind him, and at shortstop, the newly acquired Jose Tena, who was 0 for 4, hitting third. The DH Andres Chaparro hitless in the 2-0 loss. Brady House 0 for 3 while playing third base, and despite the defeat, a solid outing on the mound for Brad Lord, who sports a sub-4 ERA. Now back to the show.
He comes set, first pitch on the way, low and away, gets away from Ruiz to the backstop, and a run will score. And it's now the Nationals 6, the Brewers 3 over to third, Contreras.
So a good outing for DJ Herz in this game. This was, though, another rough outing for the Nats bullpen, a second time in 2 games in this series that the Nats bullpen has problems. 3 Nats relievers in this game combined to allow 3 runs in 4 innings. Derek Law allowed 1 run in 2 innings. He, in the top of the 7th, gave up a leadoff homer by Rhys Hoskins to left center field to cut the Nats lead to 6-2. Then we had Joan Adon working the 8th inning. I don't know that this means that Joan Adon is the new setup man, although I guess maybe it's possible. But if, in fact, he was auditioning to be the Nats' new setup man, the audition did not go well. He officially allowed 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. He had a Brewers 2-run 8th, faced 4 batters, but got just 2 outs, gave up back-to-back singles to begin the inning. It's not like he got smashed, but he did fail to retire 2 of the 4 batters he faced. And then we had Kyle Finnegan for the first time since his implosion in that debacle of a loss at the Arizona Diamondbacks late night this past Monday night. Finnegan officially tossed 1 1/3 scoreless innings for the save, but there was a but. He came into the game in the top of the 8th, runners on second and third, 2 outs, Nats up 6-2. Finnegan on his very first pitch threw a 2-out run-scoring wild pitch to cut the Nats lead to 6-3. He, on his next pitch, gave up a 2-out RBI single by Gary Sanchez up the middle to cut the Nats lead to 6-4. I don't know about you, but we know how it is with Finnegan, right? When he's off, he's really off. He was looking rather off in coming into this game in that 8th inning. But to his credit, he got out of the inning and then tossed a scoreless top of the 9th, and the Nats ended the game. So props to Finnegan for collecting himself, gathering himself, and getting that 4-out save.
He needed that one because if that thing went south, and it was very close to going totally south on him, there's a whole different conversation probably that we're leading the show with today instead of all the good stuff that happened. Now, as far as Adon pitching the 8th, I was stunned myself by it. But when you look back, they used 5 different relievers on Friday, which is never a good thing, as we discuss. Obviously, they no longer have Hunter Harvey or Dylan Floro, so you have to try some new guys in these roles. Derek Law had already pitched the 6th and the 7th. It was a right-handed part of the lineup that was due up, so it wasn't necessarily a spot for Robert Garcia or Jose Ferrer. So Davey said, all right, Yohan, go out there. Let's see what you got. And he said, when he's a starter, they knew he had good stuff, but all of a sudden, if you're going to be pitching in relief and in a short burst, dial it up more. And he got it up to 97 to strike out Willy Adames. The outing didn't start well for him. He finished it pretty strong. That's a strikeout of a cleanup hitter in the big leagues with a 97-mile-an-hour fastball. So that's good. I don't know what that means as far as moving forward or anything like that. But it was interesting to all of a sudden see the door swing open and that be the guy in the 8th inning of, it was a 4-run lead, but that's technically a setup situation. So we'll see where it goes from there. And, in Finnegan's case, that very first pitch, the wild pitch, was a sweeper. And I thought to myself, as soon as it happened, all the struggles he had last time with the fastball and the splitter, those were his 2 pitches really, and maybe thinking that hitters are anticipating that, knowing that he's a little predictable. What does he do? He comes out and throws his 3rd pitch. He doesn't throw all that often right off the bat. First one, and then he spikes it and allows a run. And so now is he going to have faith to go back to that pitch again? This is something I think in the long run, he does need to develop a third pitch that he has some faith in, especially something that comes in a little softer. He's a high 90s fastball. He's a low 90s splitter. You need something that can throw hitters' timing off, something that clocks in the 80s instead, and that's the sweeper. And so I hope for his sake, he can get a little more comfortable with that pitch and feel like he can throw it, because that may be the key for him ultimately to getting back to being elite and not being so predictable.
You know, it's funny with Joan Adon. He was brought back up to the majors to be the long man. Now, all of a sudden, he's a candidate to be the setup man. I feel like they're just trying to figure something out with him. And, you know, at this point, there is a lot of opportunity with this Nats bullpen. So the game was 6-2. If Adon had tossed a scoreless eighth, would we have seen Finnegan in the non-save situation that would have been, in effect, 6-2 in the ninth inning? Again, we had not seen Finnegan since Monday night, so perhaps he needed the work. But what do you think? Would we have seen Finnegan had the game still been 6-2?
I think so for that reason, because he hadn't pitched since Monday and pretty much everybody else had. So, yeah, I think he would have. And the thing there is, if you bring Adon back or you bring, I don't know, Jacob Barnes or somebody else in, chances are you have to have Finnegan at the ready as soon as there's somebody on base. So I think at that point, they would have gone to him regardless. Maybe if he had pitched more recently, you would say, okay, we can try to hold off and hopefully not need to use him. But in this case, I think it made sense regardless of the score, to be honest.
I know they have liked Jose A. Ferrer. He has not looked particularly good since they've had him back, but I wonder if he does get to being good, if they might try him out as an eighth inning guy, because I know they like his stuff and he does have potential.
You got a lefty who throws up to 99, then yeah, I mean, that's somebody who should be pitching big spots in late innings. He's just got to show that he can harness that 99. He's very young, very inexperienced, missed most of the season with an injury, so I'm sure they want to ease him into that. But that would be a dream scenario if he pitches well enough to kind of work his way up to a prominent role like that for sure.
So, like I said, Nats have an opportunity here to win the series. Game 3 against the Brewers Sunday afternoon, 1:35. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. The Nats' next off day is not until Monday, August 12th. So I think the bullpen is something to be mindful of. 5 relievers used on Friday night, 3 more relievers used in this game on Saturday. I know you're not necessarily counting on innings for Mitchell Parker, but would be nice to see him give you, 5 or 6 innings at least. We'll see. He's certainly capable of doing that. But, look, things have not gone well for the Nats lately. We know that. But to get a series win here over a good team of the Brewers would be nice. And you have a guy in Parker who, for the most part, has been good this season. So an opportunity, in fact, to win this series.
Yeah, and let's see how he does. Remember, he had the start in Milwaukee that was a complete disaster. Couldn't get out of the first inning. He's had a few since then. You hope he gets it back on track. They can't afford anything short on Sunday. They need some length, at least 5 innings from him before you go to the bullpen, as you said, with the lack of off days coming up. But I'm just interested to see now how this goes with this team, because they've been so streaky. I feel just like in the last few weeks, we've thought to ourselves, boy, they're playing really well. They've won 4 out of 5. And then they get swept by somebody. And then they go on another winning streak. And then they have another really rough stretch. So I'm just curious to see, is this who they're going to be? Are they just going to be streaky? Or is there some level they can reach that's a little more consistent, win one, lose one, whatever that might look like? A chance to take another series from a good team like this, I don't think you take that for granted, and you hope they can put it together and find a way to win that. And all of a sudden, I think the vibe's a lot different than it was coming into the weekend.
Yeah, and I know there has been this sentiment, especially with the Nats once again being sellers of the season's over and this team is, on a one-way street toward another, high loss season. But there are still 2 months left in this regular season. There's a lot of baseball left. There are a lot of things that can happen. And so as down on the team as you may feel, they went into this game on Saturday, 12 games below 500. That can change. There is time to change the narrative and feel to this season. I'm not talking about making a run to the playoffs or anything like that. But, last August, right, they had the great August that really helped to change the feel of that season. You have 2 months left with which you can change the feel, change the narrative of this season. So, it's not like we're in the middle of September. The Nats have, 51 games left here. So plenty of time to sort of rewrite the way you look and feel about this season. And, hopefully the Nats can do that. We'll see. Yeah, so the start from Mitchell Parker, which was an awful start at the Brewers. And that was one of those Saturday games. The Nats, of course, won that game, that 6-5 win at the Brewers, July 13th, 5 runs in 2/3 of an inning. He then struggled in his start after that, 12-3 loss to the San Diego Padres at Nationals Park, July 24th, 6 runs in 3 innings. But we did see Parker as the Nats starting pitcher in that aforementioned 9-8 walk-off loss at the Diamondbacks this past Monday night. He was better in that game, 2 runs in 5 innings. So we shall see. But DJ Herz, clearly the Nats are monitoring his workload. And I would presume with Parker, we're seeing something similar. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, pretty similar. He got up here a little sooner, so maybe they treat that a little differently. But it's clear they're being careful with those two on a different way than Gore and Irvin. Gore and Irvin, they're letting them we saw Irvin go, 110 pitches the other night. So that, it's a good sign, I suppose. I don't think you're going to see that with Herz and Parker. It does feel to me like they're very adamant about getting these guys all the way through the season and not feeling like they have to shut them down. I don't know if there's a number that they're aiming for or that they get to and they say, okay, that's enough. But it feels like they would rather cut short some of these starts, even when they're pitching well, and ultimately buy them another start later in September, then ride the hot hand, and then ultimately have to say, okay, we have to shut you down with 2 weeks to go in the season.
And speaking of Nats starting pitching, Josiah Gray was with the Nats on Saturday. July 24th was when he underwent, remember, not just Tommy John surgery, but also an internal brace procedure in order to address his right UCL. I can't imagine he's thrilled with his current situation, but what did he have to say?
Well, he's not thrilled, but he is genuinely optimistic, and he's had 10 days to get over it. He said the first 2 days were really rough, and since then he feels like he turned a corner. He said that he went into the surgery not knowing 100% what it was going to be, but Dr. Meister said chances are it's going to be both that I'm going to do here unless I see something that tells me otherwise. And sure enough, that's what he did. Now, the good news, Josiah says that he was told the timeline doesn't change by having the internal brace on top of the Tommy John. It should be the same Tommy John timeline, 12 to 14 months kind of thing. So he's hoping that he's ready to pitch before the end of next season. As we know, things can happen, no guarantees, but he's feeling good just about, what the process is going to be. He's talked to all the other guys who've gone through it before, gotten advice from them, learning how it does you no good right now to think about the end game of it all. You have to just focus on what is your task on that given day. It's going to be a long, lonely winter, and even more so next spring when everybody else is ready to go and he still has to hold back and maybe hasn't even begun throwing yet. That's the hardest part of it all, but he seems determined to get through it. And his goal, as he said, is that ultimately this is just a blip in what's going to end up being a long career. It's up to him now to actually prove that he can do that. But all things considered, I thought he was in pretty good spirits. I'm sure he's had his down moments leading up to and right after the surgery and now is focused on the rehab.
Well, one thing about Josiah Gray, we've talked about this before, he is mature, he comes off smart, he comes off self-aware, he comes off like someone who gets it. And so if there's someone who's going to handle this in the proper way, you'd think it would be Josiah Gray. Josiah Gray this past offseason was on MLB Network. He did a sit-down segment with Brian Kenny, and you could tell, like, Josiah Gray, just high baseball IQ, really has a passion for this, studies this, understands this. It was really impressive. So, it's not surprising that he would sort of be approaching this with the right mindset. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website you can check out as well, natschatpodcast.com, in which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. Don't forget, too, we are offering shout-outs on the Nats Chat Podcast this season. If you would like to send a shout-out to someone who you care about, email Tim Shovers, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. Nats Chat is on the radio Sunday morning 9 to 10 on ESPN Richmond, which is 106.1 FM in the Richmond, Virginia area, and Sunday morning 9 to 10 on Priority Sports Radio 94.1 in the Virginia Beach area. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Now the set of the pitch. Swinging a fly ball hit well to left field. This is deep. This is way back. And this one is off the wall and in play. Over the head of the left fielder, Churio. This is going to score both runners. Ruiz across the plate. In behind him comes James Wood. on a booming double on his 28th birthday for Travis Blankenhorn. His first hit as a National in 2024 and his first 2 runs batted in. And the Nationals put up a crooked number here in the bottom of the first inning. It's Washington 3 and Milwaukee nothing.